The violin is a very challenging instrument, especially when it comes to tone production and playing with a beautiful sound. Most beginners and some intermediate players, and even some advanced players, have this tendency to play with a very tight bow hold, and this is actually quite common. I was one of those kids growing up who played with a tight bow hold for many years, so I know how tricky it is to break this habit. But after having taught the violin for almost 14 years now, I am pretty convinced that this is something that most players, including adult beginners, can overcome by combining a healthy mindset, smart practice habits, and patience. Hey, this is Langerman from Violinna.live, and in this video I'll give you a few tips to develop a more relaxed bow hand. I did make 2 videos on this topic a while back, and they are filled with a whole bunch of warm-up exercises to develop flexibility in the bow fingers. All the concepts in this video are directly linked to those exercises, so I will link them all down below. So let's start from the beginning. On the violin, our hands do completely different things. So for beginners, it takes some time to understand how to move the bow across the string smoothly and while keeping it parallel to the bridge. And then at the same time, figure out the proper speed, how much bow weight to put on the stick, and also how the string tension changes depending on what sounding point you play on. And then on top of that, realizing that in order to keep the sound even from the frog to the tip, we need to calibrate how much weight we put on the stick depending on where we are in the bow. This is a lot to take in all at once, especially after just having learned a formula for holding the bow. This can create confusion, frustration, and playing in a very cautious manner, which can, of course, result in tightness. Then after achieving a satisfactory sound with which one can start playing tunes, it's very easy to hold on to this tightness for years. In order to have a more relaxed bow hold, let's first address the most common culprit, which is the thumb. I'm going to put my violin down. So it's very important to keep the thumb curved, and also it's important that this space between the thumb and the index finger stays relaxed right over here. Very common, I see players squeezing over here like this, and that tightness directly translates to the other fingers and also the forearm. Also, one can hold the bow with the thumb bent like I'm doing here, but as you can see, I am squeezing over here, so it's important to learn how to relax right there. So this is number 1. Other things that commonly create tightness in the bow hand are not having the fingers curved like this. So sometimes students will do this. You can see my fingers are straight. Of course, right here it's very tight right there because my fingers are straight and they're not curved like this. Also sometimes holding the fingers too far apart like this, same thing, or holding the fingers too close together. None of these demonstrate a natural hand position of any kind, so of course it's going to create tightness. It's very important to play with a light bow grip, and it should resemble what the hand feels naturally relaxed when it's not playing the violin. So one thing you can do is observe what your hand feels like and what the curve of your fingers are when your hand is just naturally by your side, you know, when you're walking down the street or something like that. We don't walk down the street with our hand like this, right? So we don't want to hold the bow like that. Another thing you can do is practice resting your elbow on a table or some kind of surface. I'm going to use the score to demonstrate. We're going to start with the palm facing up like this. So you can see my fingers, they're naturally curved. I'm not doing this on purpose. A lot of times I see the bow holes, they look like this. So here's my natural hand. My thumb is slightly curved here. Now I'm going to turn my hand over, but I'm going to keep this curved. And as you can see, whatever my hand is doing naturally, that's exactly how I should pick up my bow. So I'm going to put the bow in my hand now without changing anything. So I'm not going to do some weird things like this. That's going to mess it up. So let's try one more time. And then just angle the bow so that the tip of the pinky touches the stick. Because your fingers are already naturally curved, your pinky is already curved and the thumb is already curved. So now your bow might feel like it's going to fall out of your hand, and that's actually okay. So you can let the bow slip through the fingers like this, and if you can do that, that means you're well on your way to having a relaxed bow hand when you play, and you'll also understand the concept of using natural weight later on. And what I mean by that is when we put the bow on the string, the violin catches the bow. I'm not going like this. I'm simply holding it very lightly. So now what we're going to do is maintain this feeling and just practice holding the bow on the violin in different parts. So I'm going to lift it. I'll use my pinky to help lift the bow off the string. That's why we keep it curved. It helps us have really good control of the bow while keeping the hand relaxed at the same time. That's why we curve the pinky. So use the pinky to lift the bow off. The thumb is simply counter pressure. That's why we keep the thumb bent. And place it somewhere else and find that same feeling, that same relaxed feeling that you had earlier. Find it in different parts. Lift off with the pinky. Same thing, find that comfortable feeling. Lift up with the pinky. Now you're going to notice that as you travel from one part of the bow to another, your hand is going to adjust its weight depending on where you are in the bow. If your hand is relaxed, your hand will naturally create supination and pronation motion. It might be very subtle, but that's in order to keep that bow steady wherever you place it. So for example, at the tip of the bow, my hand is pronating a lot because I need to support it more with this finger in order to keep it steady. Then if I place it in the middle, the weight starts to transfer towards the middle of the hand. And as I get to the frog, the weight transfers more towards the ring finger and the pinky. Now in some players, this motion is going to be more visible than in others. But my point is that there's really more than one bow hold, if you think about it. If I keep the same bow hold the whole time, very stiff like this, and I try to go from the frog to the tip, it's not going to have a consistent sound because I didn't properly transfer the weight in order to support the weight of the bow. Because as I said earlier, we have to calibrate the weight we put on it, and it has to come from a natural instinct. It can't be pressured, can't be pushed. Another thing that you can try for a more relaxed bow hold is the complete opposite approach. So instead of paying attention to the small muscles of the fingers, let's bring our attention to the bigger muscles of our upper arm and our shoulder. Another thing that I see a lot is, players that have a very good bow hold, they're doing all the right things, their thumb is bent, they have slight motion in their fingers, but over here they're stuck when they're playing. They'll play pretty decent sound, but then the upper arm is very stuck. So just like with the thumb situation earlier, the tightness here, it's going to eventually translate to the forearm and then the fingers. So a great exercise, just very simply, practice just swinging your arm like this. And you can do the same thing with the bow. If you can feel your shoulder blade having some mobility, then you can have that same sensation when you translate it. As opposed to, again, here's the comparison. That's the full arm activated. And now same thing from frog to tip. Did you see the difference? One of them was a little bit more open because I involved the muscles going from here. And of course, it's going to indirectly affect the bow hold itself. Alright, so now that you hopefully have a better idea of how a more relaxed bow hand feels like, it's time to put these concepts into practice with these exercises right over here. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed it, please share with a friend or a colleague. Sign up for my bi-monthly newsletter. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and happy practicing.